Hey everybody, it's Nikki. Welcome back to my channel. So if you didn't know, May is Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome Awareness Month, and I haven't really been doing much on here to share about Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome Awareness Month, and I actually wanted to do something a little bit different. When I started this channel, I was already chronically ill, so all of you have already known me as being chronically ill, but there aren't very many people on here who knew me before I was chronically ill. And so I wanted to share a little bit about my life before I was chronically ill. I want to do this in a way where it's not like bragging. Referring to my younger self, the one thing about chronic illness that some people agree with and some people don't is some people are like, oh, your chronic illness doesn't change you, it doesn't define you. So that's actually something that I disagree with. My chronic illness changed me a lot, and you will see that from me describing to you what my life was like before chronic illness, how much it has changed me. And so I will be referring to my younger self really aren't the same. And I wanted to be able to talk about my younger years in a way that shows the change and progression of chronic illness, and also how much we lose, but also how much we gain from our chronic illnesses. So yeah, I'm also going to include some pictures and videos from my younger years as well. So I guess this is almost like a tribute to my younger self. Growing up, I grew up in a family of 5. I have 2 brothers. I'm smack in the middle of them. And so as most people who have brothers, you grow up being pretty competitive. You grow up being the punching bag. You grow up having scrapes and bumps and doing things that most girls your age probably are not doing because they don't have brothers. And so there are a lot of things that I just started doing from a very young age. I grew up doing a lot of sports. We were allowed to pick a sport and a musical instrument. So all of us grew up doing piano, but then we kind of differed in the sports that we played. I started off by doing figure skating when I was 4 years old, and went until I was around 10 years old when I had to quit because we couldn't afford private lessons. So here's a couple of pictures from those years. As you can see, I am the smallest of my group. I have always been the smallest and also probably the most energetic out of any group that I was a part of. So figure skating was absolutely one of my favorite things, and I took to it very quickly. And I think that's probably where my hypermobility and my flexibility benefited me in figure skating, because there are a lot of tricks that require flexibility. And from there, I played soccer, baseball. I was forced to do golf because we're a golf family. I did not like golf. I did curling for a couple of years. That was definitely one of my favorites because my dad actually got to be my coach. And if you didn't know, my dad has dementia now. And so all of the memories that I can hold on to, I absolutely cherish. And so I cherish those years that he got to be my coach as my curling instructor. And I also did bowling for a couple years, which is actually where I met my sister-in-law for the very first time. So we go way back. And then after I took a little bit of a break after curling and decided to try out the arts instead. I've always been a very creative kid and very, I didn't necessarily finish my projects, but I was very quick to try new things. And I was also very quick to move on to try more new things. And so I did all of the crafts growing up, and my mom, she's very artistic, and so she taught me pretty much everything that I know. My grandma was also very, very talented in sewing, and so that's kind of where I get my sewing talent from, because she taught me from a very young age how to sew and took that time with me. She also used to always make me all kinds of outfits and swimsuits and all kinds, and so that's where my love and passion for sewing comes from. And my love and passion for art comes from my mom, because she's very artistic. She loves to paint. She's so good at drawing, and she's also a really good cook. So eventually I grew into that as well, and baking. I grew up watching my mom. I would come home almost every day from school to a fresh batch of something that I got to enjoy from my afternoon snack, and I loved it. So yeah, I switched from sports to the arts for a little bit, and I started doing drama lessons, and I did voice lessons, and then from there decided to move on to dance, and that's where I absolutely thrived. I started dancing when I was 16. I caught onto it very quickly because I was naturally very flexible. When I joined this class, I started with jazz, and I was the only kid in my class, or I was the only teen in my class who could do the splits, even though that was my very first dance class ever, and everybody else had been dancing since they were little kids. And so that was probably the first red flag, is that I was way more naturally flexible than everybody else. I picked up dancing very quickly, and you would probably never be able to tell that I started late. Kind of what got me into dancing was I was in a musical when I was a teenager, and when we were trying out, we did the musical Fame, and there are like 3 different categories in Fame. There's dance students, there's acting students, and there's voice students or music students, and I really wanted to be one of the dance students, but I literally looked like a dancing scarecrow, and so that's kind of what pushed me into doing dance. And my very first, I guess, taste of dance also was I went to a Bible camp when I was 16 for the very first time, and I participated in a week-long intensive dance camp that was put on by, so there's a school in Saskatchewan, and they were known for this dance troupe, and so it was my dream to like go to that college just so I could be a part of the dance troupe. But they were the ones who taught us at this dance camp, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. And after that, I took all kinds of lessons. I did jazz. My favorite was contemporary. I did help teach a kids ballet class as part of my teacher's training. I did teacher's training, and then as a part of teacher's training, I had to do a little bit of hip hop. So I did a little bit of everything. I will include clips from my last years of dancing. I did dance until I was 18, almost 19. And then I quit because I went off to college after that, but we're gonna get to that. So I did dance for a number of years, and this is also when my injuries or my joint pain started. I started having really bad knee pain when I was 15, and that knee pain just continued to escalate, and it went through my dance years. So even though I was naturally very flexible, and I usually got the tricks in a dance number because I was hypermobile, flexible, I always got to do all the tricks. And yeah, I really love dance. And from there, I learned how to choreograph my own stuff. So that kind of goes into the next phase of my life. So those very first years of me doing dance camp put in me a burning passion for Bible camp. And I, growing up, used to say I would never go to a camp. Not because I didn't like Bible camps, but because I had severe separation anxiety, and I had not ever been away from my family for longer than just a sleepover. And so going away for a week was a huge stretch of faith for me, and I absolutely loved it. And from there, I went to camp for their ministry training the following year, and then ended up working there for multiple years after that. My first year as a spring staff, I was the creative arts leader, and kind of to give you a little piece of my personality back then was I was very energetic. I would throw myself into absolutely everything. I could not say no, did not say no, and I was a little bit crazy. When I look back at it, I was crazy, but I loved life, and I wanted to be a part of everything. And I did those for that first summer at camp. I loved it, and I got to teach art all summer long. And then from there, I went to Bible college for 3 years. My cat is infiltrating the video. I went to Bible college for 3 years. I initially was only going to go for 1, but kind of the joke with the college that I went to is that you can never just do just one. And so literally as I was driving to college, my very first day, I had already made the decision that I was going to do 3 years. And so I immediately changed my track, and I did 3 years in a minor of worship arts. So there were a couple of different minors that you could choose from, and I chose worship arts. And going into this college, I did not really play any instruments. Like, I had grown up playing piano, but I quit when I was 13, so I didn't remember any piano. I did sing. I was just learning how to do harmonies, and I was just learning how to play the ukulele. And through my years of doing worship arts, I ended off with knowing how to play 7 instruments. Kind of how it worked was in my first year of college, again with that same, like, I don't say no, I wanted to be a part of everything. I truly was a part of almost everything. I was a part of a drama team that would like travel to different churches to basically put on, it was usually skits, but because we had 2 people, me and I convinced someone else who also knew dance to join the team as well. So we actually ended up doing a lot of dancing, which was so cool. We did basically like, we would take sections of the Bible and we would memorize them, and we would put dancing to those sections. So basically, while the guys would be basically narrating the Bible, my friend and I, we would be dancing to those parts. And we also had these really cool like light props where like we had lights in the palms of our hands and you would click them on with like your fingers. That was like, there was like a button in between your fingers. Super cool. I wish I had the video, honestly, but I don't. But I was a part of this drama team. That was one team I was a part of. And then since I was a worship arts minor, I joined a music team as well. We just did, it was called chapel band or something like that. So we would just do the music at chapel. I don't remember how often we did the music at chapel, but did that. My part was to do, I did singing and harmonies, that was my part. And then I was also a part of chapel committee, which was in charge of making the schedules for chapel every morning. And I think that was all that I was a part of. I was also in the drama that year because first years always had to participate in the drama. So even though I was on the drama team, I also had to participate in the drama as well. So my first year was very busy, and I would consistently go to bed at like 3 a.m. and I struggled for my first semester. I didn't get very good grades because you're switching from high school papers to college papers and having to learn a whole new grading system. And I definitely struggled that first like year, for sure the first semester. Also because I had bitten off way more than I could chew, and I wasn't willing to admit that. But I had a really fun first year. And then again, I went back to camp in between every year of college. And so the summer in between my first and second year of school, I was the dance teacher, and that was probably one of my favorite years. At this point, my joints were already struggling a lot. I would get injured a lot, especially that first year of camp. I got injured a lot. I was on crutches at one point because I thought I broke my toe, and I injured myself a lot. And that summer in between, when I was the dance teacher, I had to choreograph all of my own dances to teach for a week of dance. So basically the dance camp that I participated in, the people who put it on for us, they kind of like fell apart and weren't really a group anymore. And so because I already knew dance and stuff, I was hired on to be able to teach a week of dance. It was so fun. I focused heavily on contemporary because that is my favorite form of dance, but I also did some hip hop for the kids as well, and I think they really enjoyed it. It was also like the hardest week that I had ever experienced at camp because I had these twins who had been kicked out of every single Bible camp in our province, basically. And they were really hard to work with. They did a lot of swearing. They did not want to participate. They made it really hard to teach that week, but somehow we made it through. All the kids learned the dances, and I went into my second year of college. But I did not go into my second year of college at my best, because my boyfriend at the time had broken up with me like right before I went back for my second year of college. And so I had to go back for my second year early because I was a part of a ministry team, or like the chapel. I was now the head of the chapel committee, and so all of the team leaders had to go back early to just prepare to lead for the school year. And so I had to go back early, and I really struggled because I was going through a breakup, and that second year was not like my first year. I struggled with my health a whole lot more. That's kind of where my stomach issues really took like a turn. I started like getting sick in the mornings before class, before anyone would wake up, and so I was like fighting almost every single morning with my body. I struggled with my joints a whole lot more, couldn't really participate in certain things, and ultimately ended up having, I think I taught dance one more time. I don't remember. Yeah, I did. So my second year was not as good as my first year, but I was the closest with my roommate that year. My first year roommate actually was my sister-in-law. That was fun. But my second year roommate, we were very close, and I'm really grateful that I got to have that year with her, because after that she graduated and got married. And so after my second year, my second year, even though it was hard, it really challenged me, especially musically. I learned how to play bass that year. I did guitar lessons that year, and really honed my musical skills. And the team that I was a part of that year was called Free Servant, and this was the team that would commute to different churches usually, but they were trying something new that year, and they were actually going to be going on a ministry trip to England. And so I got to be a part of that. It was so much fun. And also, fun side note is that my brother-in-law was actually on this team. So my husband's brother and we went to school together. We went to college together, and we were on this team that went to England together. So he played electric guitar and I played bass on this team, and also did vocals. I did vocals more than I did bass. But that is when I learned how to play bass, and it was so much fun. We went to England for 3 weeks. We went to London, Lincoln, and Manchester, and my role on the team, we didn't just do music, we also did dancing, because I was a part of the team, and so I taught my entire team a hip-hop dance that we could do on the streets, because London has a huge busking culture, and so we did a lot of busking while we were out there, not for money, but for like ministry purposes. And I also participated in some like art. We did like music with art on the side kind of thing, and I participated in that. And then we worked a lot with churches while we were out there, so we put on, for like 1 week while we were in London, we put on some kids ministries and teen ministries while we were there. And then when we were in Lincoln, it was more so, we did more street ministry in Lincoln, and also put on like a carnival of sorts with one of the churches that we worked with in Lincoln. And then in Manchester, it was more street ministry and like homeless ministry, because there was just a lot more homeless people in Manchester than in the other locations. I'm having an MCAS reaction, I'm sorry. So that England trip was super fun. But at that point, like I said, I was struggling with my health, and it was a hard trip. I wasn't like super sick the entire time, but I really struggled to find food that I could have, because I knew that I was extremely lactose intolerant at this point, and so it was really difficult to find food. But yeah, it was a very memorable time, and I'm so glad that I got to be a part of that. And then going in between second and third year of college, that summer I was back at camp. I'm pretty sure, I don't think I did dance that year. I might have. I think I did. Yes, I did. This was the year when I like definitely overdid myself. So I was the worship ministry leader at camp that year. So that was the person in charge of worship for every night. And then also I led a 2-week ministry intensive, or like worship intensive. So these were the ones who were preparing to be staff basically for the upcoming years. And so there were 3 different pathways. There were wranglers, there was just normal ministry, and then there was worship. And so I was the worship block. And so I worked with 2 other people to create a 2-week intensive for this camp basically. And it was so much fun. I loved it so much. And I think this year I also was the dance camp leader again, I want to say. And so I led that as well, and I definitely severely overdid myself. And that was the year when I realized that I couldn't do dance anymore, especially because I suffered a pretty bad injury that summer. I had been playing soccer, and this guy and I collided in just the wrong way, where we both fell on my elbow the wrong way. I'm still shocked I didn't dislocate something, but I did severely sprain my elbow the week before dance camp, and so I couldn't even really participate in my own dances, which was stupid, but that's okay. That was the year when I realized that I couldn't do dance anymore because my body was severely suffering. Anytime I would do something physically active, I was in braces basically from head to toe. Like, especially that last week with the sprain, I had like KT tape from like shoulder to like wrist, and then like braces and KT tape all over my legs just to be able to be upright. And again, that summer, like, because I was struggling with my like stomach issues, there were like mornings were the hardest for me, and so sometimes I would just be fighting off trying not to be sick first thing in the morning, or after like breakfast would just be like in the bathroom praying that I could make it to my skill, because my body was struggling. And almost every night I went to bed with severe joint pain, and sometimes I would just cry myself to sleep because my joints just hurt so badly. And that summer, because I was so heavily involved, it was also my like practicum for my 3rd year. We could choose to like do our practicum over a summer instead of throughout the year, and that's what I ultimately ended up choosing. And I'm really glad that I did that because my 3rd year was very busy as well. Going into my 3rd year, I was elected as the student body president, and so I had more responsibility for the school that year. And I was leading student council, and that year I also didn't have any break between summer and school. I drove from camp straight to school because we had our prep for the year early before the school opened, and so I didn't really get a break, and I went in feeling very burnt out from a very busy summer, and my body was struggling, and it was really hard for me to admit that I was struggling because I was just someone who always put on a face and didn't really tell people when I was struggling. And so my 3rd year was definitely hard because I didn't know how to let people in. And also my friends had moved on, they had already graduated. And so I felt like I didn't really have very many friends in my 3rd year because I was very busy and couldn't really participate in things. And also because my health was struggling. And I don't really have anything else to touch on. My 3rd year, I guess I do. My 3rd year, the music team that I was a part of, we basically spun off from Free Servant, and a bunch of us members joined like a smaller group of us, created a whole new group, and basically the point of the group was to be able to write our own songs and release them by the end of the year. And so that's what we did. We wrote 3 songs, and we recorded and released 3 songs on Apple Music and Spotify. And so that is super cool because that had always been a dream of mine, is to have music out there in the world, and it was super fun to be able to be a part of that. Yeah, and then after that I went back to camp, as I always did, and I was the worship ministry leader again, and we're in charge of worship for the entire summer. But at this point my health was really bad. I couldn't participate in any like group-wide activities because my joints were too bad, and at this point I was fairly confident that I wasn't tolerating gluten either, so then I had to go gluten-free and lactose-free, and I think there were a couple others, I don't really remember, but this year was good for me because it taught me that I had to start delegating to other people and not putting so much on myself. And so I started delegating a lot more and encouraging others to rise up as leaders. And I think that was really good for me because I had to learn that I couldn't be in charge of everything. And yeah, from there my health spiraled, and I did work a couple more seasons, 2 more seasons after that of camp. I was full-time staff, so I didn't work the same roles after that. I was the admin, and so I worked in the office, and this was during COVID, and so camp looked very different. And honestly, I don't think I would have been able to work full-time at camp if it wasn't COVID years, because kind of to give you perspective, we would wake up for staff meeting like I think it was like 7 a.m. or something like that, and we would go until I am having a reaction. I think I need to pause this, but I'm trying to fight through it. I'm sorry if it's distracting, but yeah, we would start at like 7 a.m. and we wouldn't be in bed until like 11 p.m. And because you're camp staff, you get a 2-hour break, and that is it in between there. And so it was very long days, and so my health was struggling. And with COVID years, camp worked a lot differently. Campers couldn't stay overnight. Staff were allowed to stay overnight because they were staff. But yeah, we basically would get up at like 6 a.m. to go and pick up campers in town, because our camp was like an hour outside of town. And so we would register campers every morning, and we would pick them up. They would come for a day for the day, and we would end our day by 7 p.m. And it was so perfect for me. It was also really hard because I couldn't participate in any like evening activities after that. Like, people loved that they had their own time. Like, for the evenings, they could go and play a sport in the field, or they could go and do whatever they wanted. And by the time 7 p.m. rolled around, I was dead, and would just go back to my little house, and I would just crash. And yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do camp any other way as full-time staff. And I'm still super grateful that I got to have those years of camp, because they definitely changed the person that I was. But with my chronic illnesses, they greatly changed the person that I was. All of these stories that I've just told you are sharing about a girl who is energetic and full of life. And I felt like, from a faith perspective, I felt like my faith was like top tier. Like, I felt like I was like riding this high, and that I had things figured out, and I was a Bible college student, I was a Bible college grad, and like, you kind of feel like you know everything, and it's just like, you don't. And so when my health spiraled, my faith struggled, because I very closely connected my abilities to do things to my faith. And so I felt like I was worthless and useless when I could no longer participate in things. I had to give up a lot of the things that I loved. I had to give up dance. Eventually I had to give up worship leading, which was really hard for me because my husband and I we dated all through COVID, and our cover for dating was we created a worship team in our church, and it was just the two of us, and so we got to hang out all the time, even though it was COVID, because we had to practice for Sunday mornings. And yeah, eventually I had to give that up too, because I just physically couldn't handle it anymore. And I got even sicker once we were married is when my health just like dropped off. And so my husband is so gracious and he's amazing. I could brag even more about him than I could tell you about my younger self. But yeah, my faith struggled a lot, and I had to just learn where my identity is actually found, and that even though my faith looks different now, it's not better or worse off than it was before. And honestly, I do feel like my faith has grown a lot in these seasons of being sick and being stuck in bed and not able to participate in things that I used to, like not being able to be a youth leader, not being able to be a worship leader, no longer dancing, can't work at camp, can't really participate much in ministry, especially because my job is in ministry, but I'm very behind the scenes. I don't get to be on stage like I used to. And that does change you, but I also feel like my faith has grown in ways that it wouldn't have grown if I was well. But yeah, I just wanted to encourage you that if you are mourning and grieving a healthier self, I just want you to know that that's okay. Chronic illness takes a lot from you, and I think it's actually healthy to mourn and grieve the person that you were, because I feel like you are worse off holding that inside of you than you are letting yourself grieve and mourn that self. I'm getting emotional now. If I had to go back, some things that I learned during this time of sickness, this itching, I'm so sorry. Some things that I learned for sure was I struggled a lot with people pleasing, and being chronically ill, you can't really people please, and you have to learn how to put yourself first, which feels so wrong, especially in like a ministry and like a lot of like faith-based atmospheres are very like put yourself last, and chronic illness, you can't do that, and it's so hard. It feels wrong, but I had to learn how to put myself first, not in selfish ways, but in order to keep my body stable. I had to learn how to not people please, I'm still learning that. I had to learn that it's okay to let people down. It's okay to upset people. Not everybody is going to be your friend. Someone who is a friend to many is a friend to none, because you can't please everybody. I feel like I also, like, my faith grew in the way where I feel like I see God through a different lens than I did before. Like, before I felt I felt like my faith was very performance-based, and like I had to please God and perform at my best and had to serve as much as I could. So from that perspective, you could look at it and be like, God, I was doing worship, I was teaching young people about you, I was raising leaders, I was doing everything right. Why would you allow me to become chronically ill? And I feel like I had to become chronically ill to learn that God loves me just as I am, regardless of my chronic illness, and that my faith is not based off of works, but off of the grace of God and what He's done. And that sacrifice makes my suffering worth it. So I hope that you can take something away from this and know that it's okay to grieve your younger self. And I also hope that you are able to look at your own faith and hopefully see that God has met you in the hardest places. At least I can look back and see that God has met me in my hardest places. And yeah. I'm going to close out this video because it's really, really long. But there will be a little montage at the end with some pictures and videos from my younger self. So don't forget to give this video a like. If you would like to continue to follow my journey, I would love to have you, and you can do that by subscribing down below. And don't forget that I post every week, so I'll see you guys next week. Bye!